What's going on, everybody? I want to make a video today talking about the three different grading companies that I use, and really and truthfully, they're the three most popular grading companies, and really the only three grading companies that anybody should use if they're going to go ahead and grade cards. Because other grading companies outside of these three that I'm about to share, they're not well known at all, and you'd just be better served to go with one of these three companies because they are the standard in the hobby. So, wanted to explain each one and then kind of talk about pop reports near the end of this video, and give some insight on those as well. So the two cards that you're looking at in front of you here, if the card on the right hand side is an SGC 9 sports card Guarantee Corporation is what SGC stands for, Sports Card Guarantee Corporation. And you can go to sgc.com to find out how you can submit your cards and things like that on your own time. Each one of these companies is going to cost you roughly between $7 and $10 to grade a card based upon how you go about it. If you do bulk submissions and things of that nature, there are discounts for every single company I'm about to talk about. There's going to be three in this video. So starting off, this is once again SGC. The card on the right that you see there is the 1990 Topps Rookie Gold Cup card of Ken Griffey Jr. It's a second year card. Beautiful cards. And then the card on the left is a Ken Griffey Jr. 1989 Don Russ Baseball's Best. Relatively rare for the era rookie card of Ken Griffey Jr. as well. The card on the left, let's start with that one, the Don Russ card. The Don Russ card is the old label. So SGC has an old label and a new label. SGC has been grading cards since 1998, and that old label there actually worked off a percentage. So you'll see that card was graded at 96, or what I like to say is 96% out of 100, which on their grading scale is a 9 mint. Once again, if you go to their website, you'll be able to better understand what their grading scale is, but that percentage grading scale is no longer what's being utilized by the company. They have now transitioned over to they actually do half grades as well. They've got like a 1, a 1.5, a 2, a 2.5, a 3, a 3.5, etc., as you go up the scale. But they now do number grades, like BGS does, like PSA does, which are the other two companies that I will be talking about here shortly. And that is their new way of grading. Their slabs are the exact same size, the exact same thickness. The thickness on these slabs is great. It's hard to see from the camera, but they're right in between the thickness of a PSA slab and a BGS slab. So they fall right in between the thickness for storage. If you had 100 PSA cards, you could store them in a box easier than you could 100 SGC cards or 100 BGS cards. But they're a thicker, more robust slab, and it in my opinion, it protects the card better. If you look at the new slab here, if you flip it over, I'm not that big of a fan personally. Pretty bland. And then if you flip the old slab over, which you can still pick these ones up online, I like the sticker. I'm a fan of the sticker. The gold sticker up there just looks professional to me. So once again, new slab is on the right, old slab is on the left. And let's turn these back around here so that we can look at them this way. But if you submit a card off to them, you're going to be getting it back in this fashion, and you don't really know what the grader was thinking when he or she graded it. You don't have any kind of idea of any kind of subgrades. Just to explain what I'm talking about in case folks don't understand. When a sports card grading company grades a card, they look at four main criteria. The four main criteria that they look at is the corners. So any card that you submit to, any grading company, be it BGS, PSA, or SGC, you're going to want to make sure it's got sharp, crisp corners. You're going to want to look at the edges. Make sure that the edges are nice and there's no fraying, there's no white showing. And then you're going to want to look at the centering. Make sure that the card's nice and centered. Make sure your centering is 50-50 or very close to it. And the other thing they're going to be looking at is the surface. Obviously, looking for defects in the glossy finishes. If the card has that, they're going to be looking at obviously if the card's creased, that's not going to help out the grading of that particular card. So those are the 4 major criteria. So this particular company, they're not giving you any kind of insight as to what the grader was thinking when he or she put the grade on this particular slab. However, some high points in my opinion. This black matted finish, it really helps your cards to pop. It looks amazing. Especially if you got older cards. If you got vintage or if you've got things that are 100 years old, I refer to those things because I call them dead guy cardboard. I call them like caramel cards, 1800s, 1900s cards. They look so good, matted up against the black in these slabs. Just I'm a fan of SGC personally. I think for me they're my second favorite grading company, and they are newer. They haven't been doing it as long, but they are they're definitely making an impact in the hobby. So great company to consider. Definitely has gained traction in the hobby with collectors. If you grade your cards with them, it's a safe thing to do. You'll have buyers. So that's SGC. Now let's go to BGS next. So I'll get these out of our way here. Okay. So this is BGS, which also stands for Beckett Grading Services. Beckett Grading Services is my favorite of the 3 mainstream grading companies. They're my personal favorite. And I'll explain why here in a second. But the card on the right, the 8.5, first off, just to let everybody know what they're looking at, these are also Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards. These are the 1989 Young Superstars. They're a score release, relatively rare rookie cards for the era. Both the same card. And now let's talk about them more in depth and the grades that are on them. So these have been slabbed by Beckett Grading Services. The one on the right is an 8.5. When Beckett grades cards, they use a numerical grading system, and they give a card, all from 1 all the way up to 10. So they have a 1, a 1.5, a 2, a 2.5, a 3, a 3.5, so on and so on. As you go on up the scale. And you're going to notice if you look carefully at the 9.5, which is, once again, let me retract a little bit. The 8.5 label is the old label, and the 9.5 label is the new label. So let's pay attention to the 9.5 label for a second. If you notice on the front, you're going to see that it has subgrades. So there's a centering there of 9.5, an edges grade of 9.5, a corners grade of 9.5, and a surface grade of 9. So one of the reasons why I really, really appreciate BGS is because when you submit cards to them and you get that card back, you actually are able to tell what that particular grader was thinking and why your card got the grade it got. So it's very, very helpful for you to gain an understanding. Now, you're probably wondering on the old slab, on the 8.5 slab, where on earth are those subgrades? Well, they're on there, but all you got to do is just turn, you got to flip it over. They're on the back. So let's go ahead and look at those. So you can see that this has an 8.5 on centering, an 8 on corners, an 8.5 on edges, and an 8.5 on surface. So BGS is giving you more information than really and truthfully, the other two that I'm going to share. I'm going to share PSA here in a second, but they're giving you more information than SGC, and they're giving you more information than PSA. When SGC and PSA slab a card, you're left to figure it out. You have to, it got the 9, and you can kind of figure out why. With BGS, you're not in the dark. You know what that grader was thinking. So if you had a dispute or anything, you could definitely bring it to their attention and say, hey, I feel differently, or however you want to go about it. But I like to know as much as possible. That's just the way I'm wired. So, excellent company. The other thing about this company, their slabs are very, very thick. This is the thickest slab of the 3 companies I'm going to show. These cards are very well protected, which is fantastic. I really like their slab. I think their slab looks very professional. I really like their labels. I think their labels look really, really professional. Other thing too, if you're into sports cards at all, if you're new or if you've been in the hobby for a while, you may or may not know there is such a thing as a BGS black label. Now, a BGS black label is a card that has gotten a 10 grade, which is a gem mint grade. That 9.5 is a I'm sorry. The 9.5 is the gem mint. A 10 would be a mint, a 10 would be a pristine. And if it got a 10 black label, it'd actually be like considered what I consider pristine. Like that's an extremely difficult grade to get. So let's say, for instance, this particular card you're looking at sells for, in a 10, $400. Well, if somebody's got a black label 10, meaning that it popped a 10 on the corners, the surface, the edges, and the centering, that card could sell for 10 times that. Because it's hard to get a 10 as it is. But if you get a black label 10, that's like an ultimate. That card is flawless. So that's something that BGS does, and I think it's a wonderful thing. And I forgot to mention it with SGC, but SGC's got a similar type program. There is such a thing as a 10 gold label, and it's the same exact concept that I just described, just on the SGC side. But the thing about SGC is, outside of that gold label, I mean, obviously, if you see an SGC card that has a gold label, you can know that is a pristine card in their eyes, like the pristine of the pristine. But other than that, all other grades from SGC, you're left to kind of figure out what was in the grader's head at that particular time when that card was given a grade. Okay, so with that, let's go on to PSA. Get these out of the way here. There. Everybody should recognize that card. And really this one too. Alright, so you have the PSA labels here. The card on the right they're both graded a near mint 8. But the card on the right is the 1989 Donruss Ken Griffey Jr. rated rookie. Love these cards. I think they're amazing. This card is the old label from PSA. And then the card on the left is the 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. Star Rookie. Probably the most iconic card and most important card maybe of the entire sports card industry. There's people that have actually... There's debate on that. But this card was, it broke the hobby open for many, many reasons. But this is the Lighthouse label you're looking at. So you might have heard the term thrown around, PSA Lighthouse label. Well, that's exactly what you're looking at. That sticker there, it has a shine to it, kind of like a bling factor. And that card... that's exactly what that is. That's your Lighthouse labels. Now, PSA used to do half grades with the old label, With the new label, I believe they've gone away from half grades. I think that PSA at this point in time does nothing but just 1 through 10 grades on their cards. And like SGC, you're left to figure out what was in that grader's head at that particular time when they put that grade on that card. Their slabs are really thin, which is really nice for storage, but they're not as, they're not as robust as the other two companies I showed. However, they are the standard. Most people go with PSA. PSA is definitely the most utilized company. I'm going to say for items from really the year 2000 and back, PSA has been the go-to company for grades and as a grading service overall. Now, grading in sports car grading. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, regardless of what company you go with, SGC, PSA, or BGS, it's going to run you anywhere between $7 and $10 on average to grade a card based upon whether you have one card to submit or whether you have hundreds of cards to submit. Obviously, companies will give discounts for bulk submissions. But also, too, it's going to, a factor with that is going to be what kind of insurance you want to put on your cards. You do have to ship your cards to them. For instance, PSA is in California. Beckett Grading Services, I believe, is also in California. SGC is in Florida. So you have to ship your cards to their location and depending upon what you're sending to them, what kind of insurance you want to throw in those cards, it's obviously going to up the price of your submission, but it's also going to add peace of mind for you. So that's kind of that's completely a personal ordeal in terms of what kind of insurance you want to put on the card. Also, with these cards, you got to remember that these are an opinion. These grades are not always going to come back what you want them to be. They're an opinion from a grader, and they're all looking at the same thing, regardless of what company that you're utilizing. They're all going to be looking at your centering, your corners, your edges, and your surface. And you might be thinking that, oh, well, I can go ahead and figure all this stuff out on my own with my naked eye. No, if you want to get into grading, because it's not cheap to grade, you're gonna want to get a jeweler's loupe or some kind of a magnifying device, and you're gonna want to really, really study the cards that you're submitting to the companies before you do, because some cards, if you pop an 8 on a card, they might not even be worth the $10 you're paying to grade them. So you want to be real careful, make sure that you're making informed decisions, make sure that you're sending in the cards that you want to have graded that are in the conditions that you think you can get really high grades on, because it can get really costly really, really fast. Now that we've talked about all three of the companies, I wanted to talk about population reports, and there's a reason why I'm showing these particular cards right now while we're going to have this discussion about population reports. These cards that you're looking at, all of them, every one that I've shown in this video, and really everything that was produced in the 90s and the 80s, and really in the 60s and the 70s and the 50s, it wasn't until the 2000s and the modern era of sports cards that we started to see, serial numbered cards and really short print runs and things like this. So, you're going to pull up, for instance, a PSA population report, and it may say that there's been, tens of thousands of these cards graded. Now, we talked about the two different slabs already for each individual company. If I'm a PSA guy and I really like getting my cards graded with PSA, and PSA comes out and they have a brand new Lighthouse label, and I've got, all my cards that are in the old label, and I want the new PSA label, I'm going to be inclined to send in all my old label cards and have them re-slabbed inside of the PSA labels, and they're going to get counted again. Okay? So that's going to in turn up the population report. And then Also, if I find really good deals on BGS cards, for example, and I buy a bunch of BGS cards and I really want to get them slabbed in PSA, that's called crossing over. So I'm crossing my cards over from one grading card service to another grading card service. And if I crack all those out at my house and submit them over to PSA from BGS, they're not going to know that that was slabbed with BGS. So they're not taking that card out of the BGS pop report. And they're also counting it again in the PSA pop report. And the other thing is, you know, maybe I don't think that the 1989 Don Russ that's on the right there is an 8. Maybe I think personally it's a 9. So I'm going to dispute it, break it out of the case, and resubmit it to PSA. Then they might grade it a 7. And then, I'll be like, oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and cross it over to SGC or another grading service, My point is, with all these cards, all that PSA and all that SGC and all that BGS can do is count touches. So, for instance, I know PSA's pop report for a 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan rookie card, which is extremely iconic card, probably the most iconic card. I'm going to say the most iconic card in the hobby from a basketball standpoint. That card's been slabbed, I think, 18,000 times roughly, or something along those lines. There might be like 200 of them in circulation. Very tough for me to believe that there's that many that have been slabbed. I mean, unless somebody's just got them all set up somewhere and they're sitting on them all. I don't know. It could be truth, but to me, all that you're seeing is when you see a card that's been graded a lot. The only real numerical number that you can trust out of that pop report is the 10. If somebody gets a 10, they're 99% of the time they're not going to pop that out. It's a perfect grade. That's what everybody strives for. So the 10s are the true number. Everything else, though, I mean, you got to take it kind of with a grain of salt. So, and then also too, with these kinds of cards, the more that you see, the more submissions you see, it can also be an indication of how popular that particular card is. Maybe people really want to get a high grade. Maybe people want to get it in a slab, because they enjoy those cards and they're nostalgic. So some things to think about. And I hope this was helpful to everybody. I wanted to take time to really go through each one of the companies and explain how they work. I once again, I appreciate everybody for watching this. I truly enjoy this hobby. I hope this video finds everybody in good health in these times, and I hope everybody's having, they're able to get through this social distancing and staying in our houses and everything else. It's been a trying couple weeks, and it looks like it's going to be a couple more. So, but everybody stay safe, and God bless. If you enjoy videos like this, please like and subscribe. I plan to put out more. My aim on my channel is always to educate, and I hope that you guys find value from these videos. So please like, subscribe, comment below. Appreciate everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Hello, everybody. I want to make a video today talking about SGC. SGC stands for Sports Card. I don't remember.